don't see Shaggy and Scooby anywhere.
The poor guys are probably running around helpless and terrified.
This is like the greatest day of our lives.
Yeah.
Finally, a monster we can sink our teeth into. Scoob, I'm kind of thirsty. I wonder if there's a liter-sized soda glob anywhere.
Come on, guys. We have to hurry.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of a podcast named Scooby-Doo. This is a special episode, something that we hinted at a couple of years ago when we did the Scooby-Dooniversary for the 15th anniversary of the original live-action Scooby-Doo film. We promised, swore, threatened that we would come back in a couple of years to do the sequel, Scooby-Doo 2 Monsters Unleashed. And that's what we're doing. And by we, I mean the usual suspects here, fellow podcasters in the Scooby-Doo podcast universe, Nick Robes from What's With You, Scooby-Doo.
Hi!
And from the other side of the internet, we have Billy Seguire, co-host of Scooby-Doo's or Scooby Don'ts.
Hello!
So, for anybody who may have been paying attention, what is it, about a dozen episodes ago?
We're sorry.
Billy, Nick, and I, we sat down for pretty much the running length of the original film, and we talked about our thoughts on the movie, how it tied into the franchise, what it meant for the franchise, and we rode Nick pretty hard about his lackluster healthcare.
Yeah.
Which I don't think
I'm
has
assuming
changed much.
that's still... Nope. That's going to continue.
So the film came out originally March 26, 2004. It was budgeted at about $25 million. It raked in $181.5 million. I'm honestly not sure why it didn't get a sequel, because it kind of kicked it in the ass at the box office. I do know...
Scooby-Doo 3? Is that what you're looking for? Why it didn't get a sequel? This is the sequel.
Yeah, why didn't Scooby-Doo get a sequel, another sequel to the sequel?
A threequel. Why did Okay.
A squeakquel, if you will.
I will. Thank you.
This is Nick getting back at us for last time, Billy.
No, this is me being confused perpetually.
Oh, wow, there's a place on Wikipedia that tells you why the third film got cancelled.
But it did gangbusters.
It said that it didn't do as well as expected. That's so weird, because it made like...
181
million off of a $25 million budget.
Jesus.
Yeah, that's a profit.
Although you never know how much they spent on the marketing.
On Sarah Michelle Gellar.
And like you gotta factor in the cost of that PC game, of the Game Boy Advance game that ties into this.
Very true.
Maybe those didn't sell as well.
Good pull, bro. Good pull.
I've played them both.
And if anybody wants some opinions on those games, where can they find that, Billy?
They can.
Yeah, put a pin in that. We're going to get to that later. So the movie opens up with a generic scary music.
Pretty much everybody returns for this one. Roger Gosnell's directing. James Gunn is writing. All the cast is back. David Newman doing the score again. Not sure about...
Is that a Newman brother?
No.
So he's not Randy Newman's brother?
I would almost want to hear that. I would almost want to hear a Randy Newman Scooby thing.
Here's the thing. I saw that credit pull up at the beginning of the movie where it was like, and, whatever, David Newman, whatever the fuck his name is. And I was like, oh, he has to be a Randy Newman relative. And then I spent the rest of the movie obsessing about an episode that was either written by Randy Newman, because Randy Newman co-wrote Three Amigos, or featuring Randy Newman a la new Scooby-Doo movies. And I was like, that would be the greatest thing ever. Guys, why are we hanging out in this abandoned warehouse? Randy, look out.
You're Randy Newman is Barry the Bonds.
But that's what he sounds like.
Okay, since we're kind of stuck in this David Newman groove.
Yeah.
It touches on a point that I wanted to make at some point during the conversation, and that is, did anybody else get like a Danny Elfman sort of Burtonian vibe off of the music in this film? Because it had that sort of choral element to it, and the, dun 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 kind of thing.
So my first thought was, I wrote, my notes literally go, oh my god, it's like the Mario level is coming to an end. period, Danny Elfman. Because that opening credits where we're swooping over this like waterfront, which is straight up and like vaguely. What did I say here? I said generic scary music intro over waterfront. Same opening as Casper and Halloween Town.
Pretty much.
I don't know.
A lighthearted
if Halloween Town
version
translates.
of The Crow.
Oh, okay. And then all of a sudden the stakes rise.
Coolsville.
And then all of a sudden it becomes like ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da.
That's not to say that I don't enjoy the music. I actually like the score. But,
Yeah.
But especially when combined with like the production design of Bill Bowes, who has worked with Burton on several films. I don't know.
It shows.
I mean, when you look at the Monster Hive, when you look at the Wickles Mansion, like I don't know. I get a very Burton Elfman vibe off of this thing.
I can see that, and it is I think the production design mixed with lighting. And I say that specifically because I feel like the lighting in this movie just eliminates any sense of horror or tension that might be in it. And I mean, properly, because it's Scooby-Doo 2, not a legitimate horror movie. But I think Burton does that same thing as well. Like, he covers spooky.
We're super lit. You can see everything. There
Exactly.
is not a hint of chiaroscuro from here to Timbuktu in this movie.
But there's still more atmosphere in this movie than there was in the original.
I don't think there's a single fucking shadow in this movie except when Seth Green is faced away from the camera.
See, I defy you, sir, because I know for a fact, in watching an interview with Bill Bowes, he commented that when you look at those original 1969 Scooby-Doo backgrounds, they painted the shadows on those backgrounds, and he said, to honor that, we painted shadows in our set.
Aww.
Okay,
That's adorable.
Yeah, but you could have also done that with light.
Yes, you could.
Oh, painting with light? Was Thomas Kincaid also in the art team? That's a niche reference. I apologize.
Conrad Hall was busy.
Are we moving chronologically through this?
Oh, absolutely not. We didn't do that last time.
Great.
I feel no bones.
All right, done. Then I'll follow the crowd.
Well, we just got stuck on the David Newman thing. Or you got stuck on the David Newman thing, and I just ran with it. We all have notes. I have some discussion questions. We can all randomly just throw out discussion questions and see where it takes us, or throw out notes. We could take turns.
You're the moderator.
Yeah, we're on your program today.
Program.
So we'll kick it off by doing a little bit of a round robin here, talking about where we saw the movie for the first time, what we thought of the movie, how we feel about the movie, and then we will dive in like the hungry jackals that we are.
Okay.
So who wants to start? Who wants to start talking about this one?
I can start here. I definitely saw this movie for the first time by starting it midway through on the Movie Network one day. So as a TV movie...
Is this a Canadian thing? The Movie Network?
The Movie Network.
TMN?
It's literally just like a Bell channel. Once it goes off the pay-per-view, it's like they just throw movies on there for a little while. So
Wait,
it's like,
you guys still have pay-per-view?
Nick, the movie came out in 2004. There's a past here.
Okay, all right.
So, like, I probably saw it sometime in, like, 2005, 2006. Really, probably mostly background. The one scene I've always remembered from this movie was Fred tying his ascot.
Like right at before the joust?
Yeah, right before the Black Knight joust. So that's the scene
underneath
that defines
the helmet.
This movie. Yeah, he pulls out that ascot and he ties it around his neck and he's like, Fred's here.
And
So I put a
nothing
lot of
happens
expectations
for 5 minutes.
on that scene.
Nice.
You're right. And it is not earned and it is not paid off. But that scene in isolation has merit.
That was the working title of this movie. Nothing is earned and nothing is paid off.
And then they changed it to Monsters Unleashed.
Yeah.
So Nick, where did you see first this movie?
I first watched it today about 10 10 minutes before we started recording.
That blew me away when we first started talking about this, and Nick's like, oh, I should probably watch the movie.
Yeah, never seen it. I also haven't seen a lot of the puppet movies, and I have not seen...
Like just puppet movies in general, or...
No, I've seen a lot of puppet movies. As the conversation will tell us later on. But I have not seen the Scooby-Doo puppet movies, as well as there's an Origin movie, right? That's like...
Mystery Begins, yeah.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one either.
After these first two Scooby-Doo movies, there are like 3 other live-action movies.
3?
If you count Daphne and Velma,
yeah.
Ah, okay, yeah.
But the Mystery Begins and the...
Mystery Ends.
No.
Lake Monster?
Curse of the Lake Monster, yeah.
That's it.
I think
Yeah!
you're supposed to treat those as like prequels to these, because it's when they first start hanging out together in like high school.
Okay, but it takes place in Coolsville, right? So What's New should technically be part of this continuity?
Because What's New is in continuity with a pup named Scooby-Doo, which was definitely
Which is Coolsville.
Okay, this is where I come in.
This is typically my part. This is what I do.
I mean, I know there's people who love doing it, but it drives me nuts when people try and like mash everything together into a single continuum. It's like, you can't do it. It can't be done.
I think Scooby-Doo should run on the same philosophy as Doctor Who, in that everything is canon, especially what contradicts itself.
Oh, I always think James Bond. But I will say that What's New, is there anything that contradicts these movies?
They do share a simple plan.
Yes! Which is the ultimate unifying factor for humanity.
I think this movie does take cues from What's New Scooby-Doo,
Oh, absolutely.
specifically where Daphne has her MacGyver moment in getting out of the cage. That's if only she had a green purse, it would absolutely be a What's New Scooby-Doo moment.
Especially with the makeup.
Okay, we're talking about we're talking about the movie now, guys.
Oh shit! I'm sorry.
Speaking of the movie, Mike, when did you first see this film?
I actually saw it in 2004. I went to the theater with my kids. I'm glad I did, because as innocuous as it is, there's something that got cut out of this movie that has not appeared.
Can I pause you right there?
Yeah?
I need to know how responsible a parent you are, just by asking, how old were your kids at the time?
My youngest was born in 2001. So 3, 5, and 7, yeah.
3! You took a 3-year-old to this movie?
I can't remember if my son was at the movie. He might not have been. But probably 3? It's very possible.
3 years old to this movie?
Hey, my oldest daughter was 2 years old, and she saw like Phantom Menace in the theater 4 times.
In the theater?
You are the best parent ever.
By her choice. Like, she wanted to go see it again and again. And people were like...
Really love Jar Jar.
She actually super dug Jar Jar.
Yes, as she should, as a child.
Yeah.
Because he is the best for a child.
As an adult, I appreciate him as a Lear's fool archetype, but...
You know, his day started off with a nice brisky morning munchin', and things just went crazy from there, so...
But anyways, you brought your children to this.
And I'm glad I saw it in the theater, because as innocuous as it ultimately is, there was something that was in the film, theatrically, that has not appeared again in any other version of this movie.
The Twin Towers.
And the octopus monster that appears at the end. Or the squid monster. And we'll get to that later. I'll put a pin in that and we'll come back to that. But yeah, I saw it in the theater, and I guess I'll be the first one to start with the feelings about it. I liked it. I actually, when I saw it, I thought, I wish this was the first movie. Because the first movie didn't have a lot of familiar stuff in it. It was like, here are the characters, and they sort of deconstructed the characters a little bit. and fucked around with them a little bit. But this movie had like the creatures that you knew, and it was the characters that you knew, and it played with the continuity or the lore, for lack of a better word, I guess. And I dug that more. As time has gone on, I still prefer this one to the first.
It's definitely the movie that is geared more towards lore heads. You are going to be excited because you see things that you recognize.
Sorry, I want to say Loreheads was actually the original name that David Byrne came up with. They went with Talking Heads instead. Sorry, Billy.
How did I get here?
This isn't my beautiful wife.
This isn't my beautiful sandwich.
This isn't pastrami on rye.
Like as the days go by.
Sorry, Billy, you were saying this is the movie for Loreheads.
Yeah, but I would argue it doesn't really do much with the characters. Like, overall in Scooby-Doo 2, what's the theme of the film?
I think there was more there, which we will discuss.
I would also say, as far as lore is concerned, there's a line that they are treading between what the original Scooby-Doo was and trying to like bring it into like a new century. Mm-hmm. And they're trying to like plod this line, and I'm going to say it. They fucking miss the mark 90% of the time.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say that that's bad. Like I enjoyed watching it, but like, I mean, like looking at these things like the Minor 49er or the Creeper. At one point,
the Creeper is unrecognizable.
The Creeper costume, and it took me a minute where I was like, holy fuck, that's the Creeper. And it was such an interesting thing of paying fan service, but also trying to be like, it gave me such a flashback to watching that goddamn first X-Men movie and being like, oh my god, this is Wolverine! You know what I'm saying? And he's like, what, do you want me to wear yellow spandex? And I was like,
yes! That's what we want. That's what we're asking for.
But 15 years ago, these characters weren't as kind of entrenched in their archetypes as they are now. I mean, Warner Brothers has really leaned into it since What's New Scooby-Doo, where they this kind of brought back that 69 Scooby with the gang. Because remember how the gang was broken up and all the weird shit that they've had them do? Doing the, monsters are real and monsters aren't real and let's stick them in a computer and aliens or whatever. And, like, a lot of stuff has happened and it hasn't been sort of consistent.
ever.
Since 2004, the Scooby-Doo brand has been a lot more consistent. And the characters are a lot more.
See, I'm going to argue against you here, Mike, and I think this is where I'm going to pull the card of watching these episodes chronologically. And that's that even from that perspective, I know, right?
Billy's always going to pull that one out.
Specifically, Daphne...
Pardon me, sir, but if you watch these episodes chronologically...
Daphne and Fred are so far off of any interpretation before.
Yes. And to come.
Oh, but that's what I'm saying. They were playing a lot faster and looser. I think now they would be more locked down by Warner Brothers to be like, no, Fred has to be the steadfast, nice guy.
Total toxic masculinity?
I would say that this is the only version to do that, because I feel like either he is non-entity, like he's just Frank Welker reading lines, which somehow becomes a character. Like if you have like the barest lines ever and Frank Welker reads them as Fred, it becomes a character.
Yeah.
Or it's like dad joke. Like a majority of the direct-to-video movies is like, there were direct-to-video movies in the Coolsville continuity is like dad joke Fred, where he's like, What are we gonna do over here? Oh my! Like, he has that kind of like dad jokey quality. This is the only iteration of Fred of like, hey, I'm in charge and I need to do this. You think of even like Curse of the 13th Ghost, where he's like, oh, typically I'm the leader and I'm no longer the leader.
He's flustered at most.
What do I do? He's not like, fuck you, bitch, I'm the leader.
This is totally something that I wanted to discuss, because while watching the movie this time, I was noticing, those moments where, like, Shaggy says, let's split up and look for clues, and he's like, he said that thing that I'm supposed to say. The friends seem very protective of their roles, and like you said, if Shaggy did this in any of the animated iterations, Fred would...
Shaggy has tried to pick up and be a detective, a leader in the cartoons, and it's had a totally different reaction.
Yeah,
because Fred totally wasn't there.
But I think they were these characters are caricatures of what people think the characters are supposed to be, and they're acting and reacting to what that shape of that character, like the perception of that character is.
James Gunn is writing the jokes that we've all heard for 30 years.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the same fucking joke that was in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back and the Scooby-Doo project and everything that we've heard. Oh, Shaggy's the stoner,
And I read something from James Gunn recently where he was talking about the tweets that he made in the past, and he said, I went towards jokes that were provocative and inappropriate because he thought that was cool and edgy. And I mean, this is the time where he would have been writing movies like Scooby-Doo and Scooby-Doo 2. I kind of feel like in his mind, he was probably thinking, that's how we make these characters relevant. Shaggy throughout this whole movie is having this existential crisis. That's not Shaggy. Shaggy is more confident than that, and the friendship of these five is a lot stronger than either of these films portray them. They seem way more fragile as a unit.
I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, because, like, Shaggy at least having some sort of little crisis, like, my problem with it isn't even necessarily the fact that it's so off of what it normally is in Scooby-Doo, but it's the fact that, like, none of these characters have an arc. Like, none of these characters really have something that they're going through in the film other than wacky adventure sequences.
Billy, I fucking love you so much, but I need to just interject really quickly and say, are you fucking kidding me? Because there is literally a moment in the fucking denouement of this picture where literally everybody goes through the emotional arc that they've had in this movie verbatim and says, like, I was having such a hard time realizing that all along I was a hero. If only I could. You are a hero because you are. Did you not realize this entire time? Oh my God, you're so right. Now I'm going to jump on this trampoline and realize my potential this whole time.
Maybe it's the fact then that for me,
it's not well written.
Yeah, like the arcs aren't done effectively. Like jumping on a trampoline is not a way to actually move forward.
James Gunn read the fucking Chris Vogler book and like fucking drew a circle and went through and was like, oh no, Shaggy and Scooby don't feel like they're part of the group. How do I get them to feel like they're part of the group? Oh my God, all of them feel like they're fucking fakes. How do I make them not feel like they're fakes? This was textbook, like just Joseph Campbell hero's journey bullshit.
And I see that too, but it's just so ineffective.
Yeah, agreed. Yes.
I wouldn't even necessarily say it was badly written. I think it was badly edited. I think there was a lot of stuff cut out of this movie. I think there was a lot of story stuff. I would love to see the script.
Yes.
I'm currently looking for a copy of the script. And there's too much. Velma having her moment with Shaggy at the end that Nick was talking about, where she's like, oh, I've always admired you guys because you're okay being who you are, whereas I'm kind of trying to be something else. And you've got Fred, who does the talkings for wimps, and you've got Daphne, who is constantly being told by Alicia Silverstone that she doesn't contribute anything to the group. Like, everybody has their existential crisis in this movie. It gets resolved in the end, but you don't see the Daphne track very fully. You don't see the Fred track at all. You see very little of the Velma track, and you mostly see the Shaggy track. And I think that is studio or possibly director.
Yeah.
It's so bizarre.
I think there's like 15 or 20 minutes more to this movie that we didn't see.
God, when we just solved mysteries for the love of it, that was the time when we weren't proving anything to anybody else. Yeah, we get it. Thank you. Why is this being spelled out?
I feel like the way the gang has been structured in both films, it's a very stratified friendship.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
absolutely.
how many times...
And that worked in the last one, because that's what you were addressing for the runtime of the film.
Barely.
How many times have, like, I'm mind you, I haven't watched all the episodes chronologically, but...
Sick burn, bro.
Hey, you are going on a tangent about how the characters have changed over time. That's my wheelhouse.
No, I wasn't talking about how they've changed over time. I was saying that at this time, the archetypes weren't as set. Because for like a decade leading up to this film, 2 decades leading up to this film, there was a lot more play going on. People were just like, well, what kind of show do we want? And then they would just plop the characters into them because it was more name recognition than, well, this is the role this character plays and this is the role this character plays. But in no iteration of the show can I remember, barring me not watching them all chronologically, Fred literally, like, denigrating Shaggy and Scooby to their faces.
Yeah, no, never. He never would.
Well, okay, so here's my 10 cents for that. Yeah, I said 10 cents, not 2 cents. This is going to be more valuable. I just recently watched, check out What's With You, Scooby-Doo, for me and my buddy Krister, talking about the Television Academy Sciences interview with Joe Barbera. Joe Barbera talking about Scooby-Doo, he literally like goes into a moment where he's like, if this is in 97, he's like, if Scooby-Doo ever comes back, I got tons of ideas, why not Scooby-Doo, all the gang, they're gonna go to Woodstock, right? They're going to Woodstock, right? But there's zombies there, right? How great is that? Like, they're dealing with zombies. Like, they're a band, but like, they're dealing with zombies. How great is that? Like, that.
I forgot they weren't a band.
That to me somehow is what makes Scooby-Doo so great, is that there is a non-specificity to the characters, and I would credit Ewau. I never pronounce it right.
Ewo.
Great.
Just Ewo.
With just creating these designs that somehow we clinched these weird ass archetypes onto. Like, these characters aren't Anna Karenina or, like, Thomas Mann. Like, they're not 3-dimensional. They're beautifully 2-dimensional. And that gives them their ultimate charm, given these characterizations by these actors. And over years, they've become, like, these zeitgeist a phenomenon. And then when you start putting these weird relationships onto them, when you start putting them into the real world, it loses its charm. These are the jokes that we've been making since the 80s, but nobody dared to put it on screen because once you do it, it loses its charm because it wasn't meant to exist in the real world. Once you put it in the real world, it's like, yeah, okay, it doesn't exist. Great job.
It's like you were saying, Nick. These are the characters living up to the jokes that we've been making for years leading up to James Gunn sitting down and writing these movies. Because while Fred has never really been characterized as a jock, everyone says Fred's the jock, right? So how will the jock treat the stoner, right?
Right.
the jock is going to go for the pretty girl, and the pretty girl is going to want to be more significant, and she will have the beauty stuff that she uses, and the stoners are going to be dumb, and they're going to screw things up and be clumsy and whatever, and then you've got, like, the nerdy brain. Like, he leans into it so fully that these characters can't be anything but what they are.
Here's the note that I found that addressed this. I said that they ask us to play the logic game with the original series, but they also ask us to suspend disbelief for this movie in the same breath.
That's a really good... I like that.
Yeah, that works.
I mean, I don't like the fact that they're doing that, but I like the phrasing of that, because it's true.
Yeah, in trying to unpack
problem.
this movie, that works.
One of my big pet peeves is trying to logic out anything kind of Scooby related. I mean, just it has a general absurdity to it, and you have to ultimately the way that I accept these movies, because I do enjoy them, and
yes.
like I had fun watching this movie, and I still prefer it over the first one, like I said. But I accept these characters as in the same way that Scooby Apocalypse is a very different version of Scooby. Those characters do not behave like the characters from Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? But at their core, there's like a quintessential Fredness or Velma-ness or Daphne-ness, to those characters that makes them universal, and you can kind of plop them into sort of, whatever situation, as long as you don't betray that character at their core. So for this movie, this is the version of these characters. This is the universe that has this version of these characters. It doesn't blend with any other iteration of the franchise. They exist as these two, and that's it. And as long as I'm okay with that, then I can be okay with it. Anything else is just a much broader sort of analysis of the characters.
View to a Kill versus Dr. No.
I guess I just wish that James Gunn was a better writer when he wrote this.
He was! He just couldn't write this!
But again, 15 years ago, this was clever as shit.
Was it? Because I don't know. I look at this now, and the references that come to my mind are like, why does it look like they operate out of the Spy Kids headquarters?
Yes. Oh my God. We can talk about the production design until the kids come home. But I will also say that as far as James Gunn is concerned, I've also thought about if this read like the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie, and I was like, that wouldn't work.
I could see a Chris Pratt Fred.
You guys do realize that sort of structurally and character arc-wise, there are
very different.
There are some
same
very
movie.
Yeah, because they're about family, right? They're about people from disparate kind of backgrounds and whatever who don't necessarily fit together, choosing to be together.
Mike, don't you know that there are 3 stories? Man versus man, man versus nature, man versus himself.
You can go masturbate to Joseph Campbell after the podcast.
They're all Shakespeare already did it. Why is Alicia Silverstone a pushy reporter? When was Batman? When was that punk movie with Peter O'Toole and Joe Plownright? Oh, it was the same. It was 2 years before this. I found out.
Sorry, that's one of those moments where a thought happens and it comes to its conclusion without the involvement of anyone else, and you just don't know what to do after it.
That's my life.
Yes, actually, Alicia Silverstone. Let's talk about some of the guest stars in this movie, because they...
Who was the limo driver? Does anybody know? He seemed like somebody.
Oh, he absolutely was somebody.
Who was he?
Not Alan Arkin.
Nor was he fucking
I knew this when we covered it.
He also wasn't the dude from Good Burger. Why can I not remember his name? And also Good Burger. He was in the fucking Abe Vigoda.
Abe Vigoda. I think it's Abe Vigoda.
Abe Vigoda was not the limo driver.
But it was an Abe Vigoda type.
I'd love to see that casting call. We're looking for an Abe Vigoda type.
Hi. It's a pleasure, sir, as he gets the candy spewed on him.
Candy? You mean the milkshake? Okay.
Milkshake,
See,
yes.
I'm not... In my version, it's like a Burger King milkshake.
By this point, I've watched this movie 3 hours ago for the first time.
But there are versions where there's like a KFC drink.
Oh, no shit.
It was KFC in what I watched.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, KFC did not happen in mine. I was actually shocked when he said Burger King.
Ooh, so we're watching a different multiverse here.
Okay, you guys know the story, right?
Nope. Tell us. And the audience.
I actually, I caught this from That Groovy Scoopcast cats.
Hey, shout out to Derek.
And Shannon?
Yeah, that's Derek and Shannon.
Yeah.
They did the...
If it's not, just dub over that.
They did the legwork, and I guess Burger King was the original sponsor. They only advertised domestically, and when it went to Netflix, or streaming, because I suppose it's on iTunes and whatever as well, they were like, yeah, we don't want to be involved with that, and then KFC was coming in like, we'll get in on that action. So they digitally changed the cup, and
The cup did look very green screen.
Yeah, and you still see...
As opposed to the rest of the movie?
Oh, that was a huge point that I have written out for the ballroom scene. Like, why did that need to be green screen? Could you not get all these extras in the room together? Linda Cardellini and Seth Green are like, we will not work in the same room. You will have to shoot us separately.
This is interesting to me because you guys must be watching it in high def, and I'm watching it on DVD. Maybe it comes off a little bit differently because it looks a lot smoother. The stuff that really stands out digitally is the actual, the monsters when they get unleashed.
I did watch it in 1080.
So
iTunes is
that
1080.
Yeah, I was off YouTube, so I think I was HD as well.
Yeah, so DVD would be 720, right?
720i.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm in 1080p, right? Nerd talk. Black rear on Mystery Machine. Oh, why was there black coming out of the gas tank?
Is it diesel?
I don't know. There was a weird detail on the Mystery Machine where there was just these black elements for no fucking reason. I've never seen that on the Mystery Machine before.
State law,
on the back of the Mystery Machine?
Yeah. So coming down from the gas tank and parallel to the other side, there was a detail of a weird black thing that went down to the bumper and curved up for no reason. Because typically the Mystery Machine, it's a continuous line from the door that goes all the way down, and you'll get the green thing up top where Mystery Machine is located, and then it's blue on the bottom, and then you'll get the bumper, and then that's continuous. But for some odd reason, there was a black thing in orange. I don't know why that happened.
Below the headlight.
Yeah. It was a weird design choice, I felt. In general, there were a lot of weird choices in this. This movie was insanely over-sound designed.
Oh, yeah. Although, in one respect, there was a rattling sound throughout the movie, and I was trying to figure out what the hell it was, and I thought maybe it was the couch I was sitting on squeaking or rattling, or somebody outside my room. It was...
You had your blue mic plugged in?
It was Scooby's collar.
They literally put that sound
in through the whole movie. Every time Scooby moves, there's a little bit of a jingling sound. It's distracting, but also I kind of respect the effort.
Yes! No, I don't respect the effort, because the person I respect is the person who spent all the time on Darth Vader, who was like... Because it's inconsistent and amazing. That's an amazing sound design. It's every time her leather moves, when it's not a joke, they still have it in. There were so many needless moments of just Like, I was like, why is
there were
this
a
here?
lot of needle drops in the whole movie.
Yes!
So, like, and
This
really,
movie was over sound designed to the max!
the only needle drop I needed was I like big butts, because that joke was good. I love the idea that Mr. Wickles is sitting at home listening to I Like Big Butts and I Cannot Lie on vinyl.
On vinyl?
Yeah, on a
fucking
78.
acetate.
Yeah.
On fucking acetate. He had to have that converted.
Who did he get to make that?
Jacobo.
I like my music formats the way I like them.
So this actually brings us.
Wait, we're talking out of order, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
So Jacobo and Winkle, right?
Mr. Wickles. Wickles.
Can I say that might have been my favorite part of the movie is the fact that Jacobo getting his perspective on Wickles, like the weird Rashomon that happened. He's like, you got the lead in My Fair Lady. I was the better Eliza.
You were too acty.
You ate all my tater tots.
You said you were Buffy.
I liked his idea of being like, I was doing you a favor. That might have been my favorite part of the whole movie.
This brings us back to Billy's.
That felt the most real.
This brings us back to Billy's, like, let's talk about the supporting guest cast. Because Peter Boyle.
Mm.
I loved seeing Peter Boyle pop up in this movie.
Loved him.
And at no point does he disappoint in this movie.
No!
Old Man
because he's
Wickles
amazing.
is one of my favorite
He's
points.
batshit crazy. I mean, Peter Boyle elevates anything that he's in. But I love, I've heard a lot of people comment on this scene, and rightfully so, when he turns around and goes, Bush is yowling at me again. Like, he just sells that line.
Yeah.
That was great.
I also thought, like, he's the character who I feel has the most heart in this movie, because that genuine moment at the faux ghost where he's just like, you know, we all have something broken inside of us. Don't get into this life. Like, I was touched by it a little bit.
But then he snaps.
He does, because, you know, he's still a flawed character.
But also, writing-wise, when they've ruined his life, they sent him to prison, and then the moment comes where he's like, wait, you're the, what does he say, runts who ruined my house? Or whatever he says.
Well,
and I'm
I don't
like,
think he recognized them as the Scooby
What?
Gang yet.
also, they're in their 30s by this point. Runts? Mike, if you were referred to as a runt, would you be like the candy? I don't know what's happening here.
Yeah, I don't know how to respond.
I know you're in your 40s.
There was the moment with Shaggy. I loved this moment. See, this is one of the things that, as much as we talk about the things that James Gunn maybe did wrong or was maybe misguided in his approach to these characters, the fact that he refers to Shaggy as that beatnik, like, he nails that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
And
that's right.
I love that.
Maynard
I love
G.
the fact that
Krebs.
was in there, and I think that was a James Gunn thing.
Peter Boyle actually improvised all of his lines.
So, fuck James Gunn! That fucking dipshit.
Is there any other guest cast that you want to talk about, Billy?
Well, I want to talk about Seth Green. Because, I mean, Seth Green, he's Seth Green. He's putting in Seth Green's performance. But
All right, just really quickly, I want to make sure that the viewers know that you love Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
I think it's a pretty good show. I don't know if I'd say love in that way.
No, you love it.
Do you
I
love
just want them to know
Do I
that. So
love
as we go into the Seth Green commentary,
Okay.
they're going to know that you're seeing him as, Willow's boyfriend, and all that's going to go into it.
Here's the thing, I think he's inhabiting.
Please
a character
continue.
very
Please
well.
continue.
Thank you. I feel like that was a bit of an off track, but
I just want them
Nick,
to
Billy's
know
trying to tell you,
what's
it's not like
informing
a deep
this.
abiding love,
Please go.
like a love for a child or a love for a spouse. It's more of a lust.
It's like the love of a man and a fine cigar.
Really?
So Seth Green's character, he has this scene with Shaggy and Scooby where it's meant to make us think that he's the villain. Where he's
God,
just
I love
like
that scene.
he's yelling, he's laying into these two henchmen, employees of his, Then he turns around and he's like, no, Shaggy and Scooby, you didn't see anything weird. And then kind of spooks them a little bit, messing with them.
Yeah.
Holy shit. Even though he's not the monster, Velma should not be with this man, who is definitely going to gaslight and abuse her as time goes on.
What was Shaggy's line?
We're gonna make like your personality and
Yeah. But also he had a line later on where he was like, we saw both sides of whatever. Mm-hmm. And there was a shitty line there. It was great. I loved it.
I think there was more Seth Green in another version of this movie. I
just saw my note which says bad misdirect.
Also, like, if you're looking at it as, you know, as a story with characters, the fact that Velma ends up with this man, I was very disturbed by at the end of this film.
Oh, here's it in sequence. This is how I got to bad misdirect for Seth Green. I do get a too much sound design note, and then so they run out onto this bridge where Fred has previously broken the bridge, right?
Yes.
Right.
And so Velma runs out, chased by Seth Green, and
this
falls
is in the Monster
through.
Hive.
Yeah, this is in the Monster Hive, and she falls through, and then much in the tradition of James Bond GoldenEye, we get a random upskirt shot, which was maybe the most jarring thing I've ever seen in Scooby-Doo.
I noticed that too.
Ever.
Actually, there's another upskirt with...
we just see right up until the
there's another
full Rush
upskirt
Delta.
with Daphne when she is... Again, I didn't see it in high def, so maybe you saw more than I did. But when Daphne is crawling from the back of the Mystery Machine up to the passenger seat, she's wearing a skirt. And she just kind of like crawls up there. Yeah.
Yeah, that was rough as hell. But anyway, so we get this thing, and what does your heart say? These are my notes. Quote, what does your heart say? End quote. Who the fuck earned this? Million question marks. I wrote a million question marks. Like,
I think there was more story there that we didn't see.
I think that should have been earned, and yeah, I think that you're right. There's something missing.
I'm pretty sure, considering the way Warner Brothers probably viewed this property, especially at the time the original movie came out, like the original movie is something like 86 minutes long. Like I think they were really just make this to like the razor's edge of acceptable for theatrical release as far as running time. And
I missed the 72 minutes of direct-to-video releases.
And, you know, have it play as many times as possible and make as much money as possible. And this one is like 92 minutes, I think. Mm-hmm. But I think the philosophy is still there. And I think, I feel in my bones that Gunn probably did develop the story and the characters a little bit more. I'm not saying it's Shakespeare. I'm not saying, you know, this is like a Robert Town, Chinatown, Scooby-Doo sort of thing. Is that because he wrote Romeo and Juliet? No, but that's good. That's a nice connective tissue thing. I think that Gunn is a better writer than what some of the gaps in this movie portray.
I can see that. I can see that being a studio thing of like, all right, make sure that you have a chase sequence every 5 minutes, and they should be able to walk into this 40 minutes in and still understand the plot.
God, have you seen that, the Joe Barbera interview?
I haven't, although after I saw your podcast on it, I'm like, oh, I should check that out myself. I checked
some of it out, yeah.
Because he keeps saying over and over again, like, chases. Like, chases are a thing. Like, at one point he talks about that he hired a writer from the Honeymooners, and he's like, bah, he was fucking terrible. Like, he didn't know how to write chases. And I'm like,
not hard.
Well, start thinking about it, because this is the dude who won an Academy Award for Tom and Jerry.
I'm actually...
I mean, a chase requires an understanding of geography and like
drama.
Obstacle and solution.
Drama, baby.
That's not saying that the Honeymooners guy, like, I don't know what the name of the guy is, but it's not saying that he was a bad writer.
Yeah, I'm sure he was a great
writer. But the specific
write chases.
The specific needs of the animated shows that they were producing, this came up in my conversation with Dwayne Poole, where he was saying the live-action writers, they struggled because they're so used to characters talking. And it's like, no, this is way more visual. You have to write to the visual. You have to write, like, directional. Everything moves right to left or left to right. Everything operates on a flat plane. It was a very disciplined way of telling a story, a very specific way of telling a story, and they had very specific needs that really talented writers couldn't wrap their heads around because they just didn't get the limitations of the medium that they were working in.
Well, and the same thing with actors, right? I mean, they talk about that all the time with people who do a lot more voiceover work. I mean, you can't hint at anything. There's no subtlety in your facial features. You need to be like, I'm mad. How do you portray that without being like, my eyebrows go down?
Exactly. It's a very specific set of skills.
Yeah. Much like I've got a very specific set of skills.
I will find you,
Liam Neeson.
and I will chase you.
I was going around Ireland carrying a rock, looking for
Voice acting gigs.
I feel that joke deserved a much better laugh than it got. I will find you, and I will chase you.
It was subtle.
I have a very specific set of skills. I will find you, I will chase you. I earned that one.
Yes! There were, I will say to James Gunn's credit, there were some of my favorite fart jokes of all time in this movie. Oh my god, the best.
I guess Velma with the leather suit, that was an ad-lib where she was like, I swear it was
Yeah, that one was fine.
I thought that was like the entire reason to put her in the suit.
I thought it was too, so that might be a little he said, she said, but...
I'm gonna say, anytime Scooby did a fart joke, it was unbelievable. Like the thing with Captain Cutler, where he's just farting, but it was earned. It was fucking earned, because he was like, oh, he gets nervous, and he farts. Just fucking holding Scooby's ass to fucking the minor 49er who breathes fire all of a sudden for no fucking reason, and he's just fucking holding his ass to him. That was great.
Even the makers of this film looked at minor 49er and went, why are they scared of him?
Because he's fucking 7 feet tall. Granted, he was wearing stilts.
I'm gonna disagree with you about the farting. I agree with you that on a narrative level it was earned, but there's just so many fart jokes in this movie, especially compared to the previous. Like, at least in the previous one, they just got it all done with that in that one scene.
In one scene that you could cut from an airing if you wanted to.
But I don't know. There's something I don't understand. I don't know any kids who love fart jokes.
It's more for adults. It's more for adults. Let me tell you something.
It's for a demographic with a very specific set of skills.
Yeah, as a construction worker, fart jokes are hilarious. I spend most of my day with a group of dudes farting.
Well, you think that anybody that's near like an acetylene torch would probably find farts funny.
It's great.
This movie, the original film was shot in Australia. Sunny, beautiful Australia. And this one, they shot in Vancouver. So it provided a slightly different environment to shoot in, apparently a much colder environment to shoot in. Sarah Michelle Gellar complained about it relentlessly.
Also, opposite coast from typical, right? Typically it would be Toronto, right?
No, Vancouver gets a lot of work like that.
No shit. Because I feel like New York especially...
No, Vancouver is like all X-Files, Supernatural, so it still has that vibe.
Toronto and Montreal have picked up some of the slack because Vancouver just got too busy and was overshot by the mid-2000s. But yeah, like that late 80s to early 2000s, there was a decade of Vancouver just being the hotspot. And it's interesting you brought up X-Files, Billy, because that was one of the things that I was going to mention. The silver mine was famously used in I believe it was the season 3 opener or for the X-Files. It's like a mine.
Where Mulder and Scully fought the Minor 49?
Exactly. And and he anally probed them with his pickaxe. No, It sort of took me out of the movie.
Mulder, there's no way that a minor has lived this long, Mulder. Scully,
Why is Christopher Walken Mulder's partner in this scene?
I'm doing the Eddie Izzard version.
It kind of took me out of the movie a little bit to see something that was used so often in various other sci-fi shows and stuff, most prominently in the X-Files. But on the flip side, one of the bonuses was seeing some of the smaller guest actors that showed up in a lot of shows that were done in Vancouver. Particularly, I don't know if you knew, the Aggie Wilkes was Karen Conoval, Billy.
Yes, and she is fantastic. I'm a huge fan of her work, particularly in the Planet of the Apes franchise, in which she plays Maurice.
And she's done like several X-Files episodes to great acclaim.
Yeah.
But that was the first thing I thought of when I saw her. I was like, hey, it's Karen Conoval! Gotta throw that out to Billy. Kevin Durand. Do you guys know Kevin Durand? He played the Blob in X-Men Origins Wolverine. He played Fett, Vasily Fett, in the Strain TV show.
He was in Lost as Kearney, I want to say.
Okay, that's probably where I know.
Okay, he was also in the Ridley Scott Robin Hood movie. He was the Black Knight.
Whoa, no shit.
Yeah.
Oh. He was the toxic masculinity that Fred had to defeat at the end of the film.
Yeah.
Here's the other thing. I hated the fact that his eyebrows looked like Jack Nicholson on acid. Like, there was just a weird eyebrow thing with that character design where I was like, it's too much.
That's actually a perfect example of what I was talking about with how I'm sure the franchise was viewed at the time, because nowadays I think they'd probably ride that line a little tighter in representing the Black Knight ghost or, something from the Scooby lore.
Yeah, they'd probably have like a suit of armor.
Whereas watching the special features on the DVD, they were talking about the little skelly guys, and they were like, yeah, originally we had them as just like a big eyeball, but then we thought, wouldn't it be fun if they had mouths and they could like express more and do this and do that? And I think the same thing went with the Black Knight, where it was like they just wanted more expression in the face.
Oh, weird, because the Skelly guys played for me 100%.
I'm with you on the Skelly guys.
And I'm sure, it's kind of hit and miss for anybody. I agree that I didn't like the Black Knight with such an expressive face. I think part of what makes the Black Knight interesting is just that steely gaze, the metal faceplate. But I think, listening to the effects people talk about it, where they were just, we were designing it, we were doing this, and then we thought, well, let's have a little fun with it. And that kind of stuff comes from up top, because someone has to approve it, right? So it's not just the VFX people deciding they're going to do something different with the characters. So the producers, the director, everybody was on board with it. And this stuff just wasn't locked in stone. This isn't the sort of thing that... I think the fandom is such now... I mean, just look at how people flipped out over the 13th Ghost movie. I think they're a lot more branded now than they were at this time. And I think the monsters, the 49er with the fire, the zombie with the goop spitting, and the 10,000 volt monster kind of doing his own thing, and they all were interpretations of these old classic monsters. They also went through the randomonium process. So they're not costumes anymore. They're animated monsters. They're monsters unleashed, right?
Yeah, and I think you can have that cover you.
Billy, were you, knowing you, as I do, were you just waiting with bated breath for a really dope-ass motherfucking space kook?
How can you not have a space kook in a film like this?
That is what I was waiting for this entire time!
Space Kook was in the movie, wasn't he?
How can you not put him in?
There was a clip of Space Kook, wasn't there?
I don't think so.
In the museum?
I did not see one.
There might have been a costume, but it was never brought to life.
No.
You didn't even get, I enjoyed how, we did see, other villains at the bar. They name-checked, C.L. Magnus and Aggie Wilkins. Okay, those are names that I recognize.
Oh, C.L. Magnus, I remember.
The bar.
Yeah.
So, there's a deleted scene.
With more Big Brother.
Not with more Big Brother. But Shaggy and Scooby come in, and they sell themselves as the Piccolacula brothers. 50% Pickle, 50% Dracula. And they have a conversation with the Samoan-looking guy, and he reveals to them that he was the cotton candy monster.
That they eat later?
Yes. He was the original cotton candy monster, and that's why he's at the Faux Ghost.
Mm.
Too bad that's not a thing.
They replaced the Piccolacula with the Shizzy McWhatever and the SD McGrizzle, and they take out the exchange that they have with this character, which takes all the connective tissue away from that cotton candy beast.
Mm. Albeit, at least you're not like, hey, remember that guy earlier? Well, he spawned this thing that we're now going to eat.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you didn't really need to explain it. It's like, oh, there's a cotton candy ghost, and like, sure, that has never appeared
This
in
is their
Scooby-Doo
only
before.
moment of
But-
being.
True.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I saw that as a reference to, like, in the opening of Scooby-Doo, Where Are You?, where Scooby, like, licks his lips of all the cotton candy on the screen.
Mm. Yeah. Also, this movie ends the exact same way as Muppets from Space, which came out
Shoes
5
off.
years previously.
And is a better film.
Whoa! Shots fired! Damn, bro!
I have love and appreciation for Muppets from Space.
Fozzie, did you wipe your hands? Did you wash your hands? Yeah, of course. La 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 la. As you go, Ginger K. You want some jalapenos on that sandwich?
Did anybody else catch Fred's use of Velmster in the film?
She was wearing a Velmster necklace the whole time.
Because the whole thing...
Is that what
there was
it
that
said?
big thing
It did say Velmster.
in the previous film where it was all about getting the nicknames, right?
Using my old nickname to get me to feel like I'm a part of the gang again.
God, I love Linda Cardellini.
She really did impress me with what she was able to do with what she was given here. I think of the four main actors in this movie, she was the one who was really
Forced to be
acting
the most characteristic.
Can we all
Yeah.
just agree that we are all completely in love with Linda Cardellini?
So, I work with an individual who may or may
Linda
not...
Cardellini.
No, he's a wonderful individual whom I really enjoy working with. There's a weird thing that he may or may not have been in the movie Top Gun, and had this whole Hollywood part of his lifestyle. So when he texts me with stuff about showbiz, I'm always like, oh, there's an added level to this. And so I randomly got a text from him saying, what did Linda Cardellini have to do with Scooby-Doo? And I was like, well, she was blah, 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 blah. And he goes, she's my new crush. And I was like, you're watching Dead Like Me, aren't you? And he's like, yup.
She's not in Dead Like Me.
No, not Dead Like Me, Dead to Me.
Yeah, Dead Like Me is the Brian Fuller show with Mandy Patinkin.
Oh, I'm thinking of Dead to Me.
Yeah, Dead to Me is the new one.
Okay. Yes, Linda Cardellini is in a new show, yes.
Yeah. So that's my story.
I also just want to say, thank God Ruben Studdard is here. Thank you for not dating the movie and anyway bringing us a timeless performer like that to end the film in.
Yeah. Also, let me just pull up my notes really quick about Big Brothers. They were British, apparently.
There were 2 songs at the bottom of the credits of the music credits
Yeah.
that said, like, dependent on region or something like that. So there were 2 songs that were used in different regions, like the Swedish artist named, like...
So Nick and I might have had different end credits, just like the different Burger King KFC controversy.
Great.
There you go. You guys might have also had completely different fart jokes.
Canadian farts versus...
Well, after you get enough poutine.
versus... poutine versus Putin.
That just made me think of...
Yeah, we do have less of a Putin influence in Canada.
Oh, here we go. Here's the note that I feel the most proud of. The bad guy, when he first shows up, after seeing Redbeard in the museum, the window blows open by lightning, and then all of a sudden this thing shows up, and I said, oh my god, it's the bad guy from Halloween Town meets Ivan Ooze meets Nebula from Captain Simeon with the helmet from the leftovers of the 1997 sci-fi Star Kid. If nobody's seen any of those movies, I am spot fucking on.
I got your Ivan Ooze.
Go look at 1997 Star Kid, because it is literally the eyebrow, like the eye holes and the mouth are exactly the same. Nebula from Captain Simeon is he was a character played by Michael Dorn, Worf from Star Trek, and literally the head shape is exactly the same, as well as the deep booming voice. Ivan Ooze, of course, from the Power Rangers movie, he had the same kind of just like, I'm a bad guy, check me out, I'm wearing pinstripes. And the bad guy from Halloween Town, just watch Halloween Town and tell me I'm wrong. I defy you! North America. Right. That gets us both in here.
We're all here.
I've got two quick things I want to add. One of them,
Okay.
in the Faux Ghost, the guy that Scooby spits the pickled egg into his cup,
Yes.
that's the voice of Scooby. That's on screen. He's the dude.
Oh, that's a nice little cameo.
Did we talk about...
I was like, not Frank Welker and not
No.
the corpse of Don Mezek. It's Neil Fanning?
Neil Fanning, yeah.
Yeah.
So he, incidentally, has one of my favorite credits of all time.
The Police Academy.
He...
Yeah, you brought this up in the last episode.
Yes, he was the stunt coordinator for he was the director for the WB park in Australia. Warner Brothers has a theme park in Australia, and they had a stunt show for Police Academy, and he was the stunt director for that for like 10 fucking years.
Which totally made sense, which is what we said last time as well, because
Yes.
he knew somebody that was working on the set, and they needed somebody to do the voice, and he was like, hey, I've got this friend, and they brought him on, and he was the on-set voice of Scooby, and they just decided to keep him as the voice of Scooby.
I also feel like he had some input into the set design, because half of this movie does feel like a stunt show
Yes,
at a
that's
theme
true.
park. I feel like they did film this on the like mid-90s Batman stunt show that was in Six Flags. You guys might not know this. I was a big Six Flags proponent for
I
a
saw
while.
that stage show. I got what you're saying.
Yes, and incidentally, the woman who played Catwoman in the 60s Batman did play the narrator in that stunt show across Six Flags across America, North America.
Did anybody catch a Frank Welker in this movie? I didn't see him in the credits. I didn't hear any Frank Welker-like voices.
I'm assuming he was the pterodactyl.
Oh, I never thought of that.
Yeah, I didn't see
That's
it.
very possible.
Because I didn't see D. Bradley Baker, so I'm assuming it was Frank Welker.
Frank? He's not on IMDb. D. Bradley Baker was the 10,000 volt ghost zombie and red eye skeleton.
God damn it!
We got to talk costumes, at least briefly.
Yeah.
The costumes are slightly altered. I think they're not in Australia. They're in Vancouver, like we said. Shaggy's got the shirt under the shirt.
Sure.
Everybody... There was one scene where Sarah was a little nipply.
Yes!
But, yeah, I think the costumes were changed to be a little bit more like the originals, but also to fit the cold weather. And I love the fact...
Well, also, much like most of this movie, it was trying to ride the line between the originals and updating.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
However, they chose to thread those highway cones. And it worked to varying degrees throughout the movie, I would argue.
And I loved that scene. I'm not a fan of the Velma in the leather suit. I get what it is for the character, but when she gives up on it and just like reaches in and pulls the sweater up, I thought that was a great moment.
It was nice to see that sweater.
I love the fact that she just did not let go of it.
That was a wonderful moment. But also, like, it also played into the whole, like, oh, it's starting to smell in here kind of thing, because she's wearing that in there the whole time.
There was more costume variation in this movie, I thought, as well. Like before, I feel like in Scooby-Doo 1, they were wearing the same thing the whole time they were on the island. Whereas this one, they got a couple costume changes.
And sometimes between scenes, or between edits in the same scene, costumes would change. Like when Fred is talking to Patrick, he's wearing the jacket with the Coolsville 76 t-shirt, and then all of a sudden he's wearing a sweater and talking to Patrick. And it's like, when did that happen?
That is the most Scooby-Doo thing of this entire movie. That is Scooby-Doo.
He needed to lose his legs, and then it would have been perfect.
And this reminds me, the thing that I dropped, the innocuous thing at the very, very beginning, out of all the changes and weirdness and different versions of this movie that kind of exist, when I went to the theater, and I sat in my seat, and I was watching this thing up on the big 60-foot screen, when Shaggy and Scooby are doing their, we need to go out and do our detective work, and he pulls the whipped cream can out of the fridge, because he's going to do the Scooby thing, the rabies thing. He gives it a shake, and before he does the whipped cream in Scooby's mouth, he inhales some of the gas. He takes a hit off the whipped cream can, and then he does the whipped cream in Scooby's mouth. And when I bought the DVD, we sat down to watch it, because this would have been, whatever, like 2004, 2005, and that scene goes by, and I'm like, what? Where the hell did that go? And I thought maybe it'll show up down the road. It's gone. It's like...
We're gonna solve a mystery. Whoa, 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 whoa.
And weirdly, I mean, as we've said millions of times on all of our individual podcasts and in these shows that we do together, we're not fans of the Shaggy as the Stoner. But I just feel robbed of this scene. Because it's like... I saw it, you know? This isn't like those stories where people go, no, I saw Biggs talking to Luke on Tatooine. I saw a screening with that. Didn't exist. This existed.
I just want Jabba to be a weird guy in a fur vest.
So I thought that was interesting. I thought that was something. I've never heard anybody else mention that.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to get that out into the world, out into the ether.
Thank you. Because I felt like I saw that, even though when I watched it, I was like, he's putting whipped cream into his mouth. But I'm like, the subtext is they're doing whippets. I did not see it, but thank you for having that moment.
That would explain the dance scene at the end.
Why does this movie just end with a big dance-off?
Because Muppets from Outer Space was a huge hit.
True, you do want to capitalize on that.
And so is Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back.
Come on, it's like the movies, the end of Predator, the end of whatever other movies I can't think of, where they always have like the shot of the guy, it's not a shot from the movie, turns to the camera and they get their credit. This is just, it's the conclusion of the adventure, and it's like, this is the cast having their bow. That's why you've got Mr. Wickles there. That's why you've got the creepy fans there. That's why you've got all the villains. Everyone's dancing together. Oh, Big Brother, when they were on stage, those dudes were so muscular. I kept waiting for the saxophone player from the Lost Boys to come out and do a solo.
They are very muscular. None of the instrumentalists are part of Big Brother.
Oh, okay.
It's just the three dudes and the three girls.
Oh, okay. Because, like, the bass player and, like, the other guy on stage... Like,
no, they have separate credits, if you look at IMDb.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. No, I went deep. I told you. I almost didn't finish this movie.
Nick almost didn't come back.
The first time watching it, because I was like, I need to find out more about this band. I was like, they wanted Blackstreet. What happened? Where was this? Can I find out why... who they were trying to get, because they got Outcast, Land of a Million Drums. Check out What's With You, Scooby-Doo, for Billy and I not talking about that music video.
We tried.
And I was like, here we go. They got Outcast for the soundtrack of the first one. They were going for the next big thing. Who is Big Brother? No answers. They were a British band. They had 2 hits. They broke up very quickly. It was like 4 dudes and 3 girls.
I think some of these songs
it was a boy band.
Are clearly Warner Brothers music just being like, hey, put this in your movie. But I think some of the choices were inspired. The Hi Hi Puffy I'm Yumi I thought was great. The Friends Forever. I really like The Simple Plan.
Oh, yeah.
That works because there's like a Kids WB connection.
That's
as well.
true.
Wait, are we sure that's Simple Plan?
Don't Want to Think About You?
Right.
And
Right.
We know our CanCon, Nick.
The New Radicals.
The official band of Canada, Simple Plan. Sum 41 got kicked out. Sorry, Nickelback got kicked out. I would like this to be on the record. I have personally said some things about Simple Plan which may be viewed as less than nice. I have heard nothing but amazing things about the dudes from Simple Plan, about their demeanor, about their professionalism, about who they are as people. I have heard that they are the nicest individuals ever.
The charity work?
I just want that to be out there. Said from my mouth.
Nick, you and I did the Simple Plan episode, first time I was on your show.
And they were horrible in that episode.
I was hard on it, and I harbor some guilt over that commentary.
Well, they didn't do a good job.
If you can just delist that episode while Mike's trying to get them on the show.
I mean, I've heard nothing but great things about them. I will say their acting performances, I've seen less than stellar, and as far as their music is concerned, I really liked I'll Do Anything for You. How about that?
I don't think their acting was any worse than other musicians they've had on the show before, and What's New Scooby-Doo is probably my favorite Scooby-Doo theme song.
We're talking about Jerry Reed.
Little Mary Sunrise.
I've only sang for monkeys before, but never frogs.
There are some cool songs on that album inspired by and featured in the film. Like Flagpole Sit is on there by Harvey Danger, New Radicals is on there. There's a handful of songs on there that are kind of cool. And I was surprised.
Doesn't
Can you
match
name
the brilliance
another
of
Harvey
getting
Danger
Shaggy for Scooby-Doo, though.
So that's all that I got, you guys.
Has Shaggy ever been featured? Has Shaggy the artist ever been affiliated
Yeah, the first
with
movie.
Scooby-Doo?
Yeah, in the soundtrack of the Scooby-Doo the movie.
Yeah.
First Scooby-Doo.
Yeah. He's all over that.
If you listen to the podcast we did previously, it is Shaggy music that I used to lead into our conversation.
Hell yeah. Well, to quote Shaggy, if I was to talk about that podcast and my involvement in it, wasn't me.
So that's all that I got, you guys. Does anybody want to add anything, or is that pretty much our conversation on 15 years of Monsters Unleashed?
Listen to Scooby-Doo, Scooby Don'ts.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I would second that opinion, and I would also say, listen to What's With You, Scooby-Doo. Listen to that show. Sorry, I had another point I was about to bring up, so that you put pressure on me to also endorse yours. I just want to say, I do think sort of Daphne in this film says a line, and I think it sort of sums up this film's message, and that is, image is everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this movie, very much in the creating of it, thought about that in the superficial, how things are going to look, versus perhaps what's underneath.
Form dictates content.
I dig this movie. I stand by it 15 years later.
That's a controversial opinion.
I think it's fun. It's playful, it's adventurous, it's Laurie, it's, I don't know, it feels more Scooby-Doo to me than the first movie. I stand by it.
I don't think it feels more Scooby-Doo than the first movie, but I would say that it's definitely fun. I think it holds a couple more Easter eggs than the first one. I think it tries harder story-wise, and that is why you fail. That's why it fails harder, because it takes more risks. But I would also say that, to a certain extent, that those are the things that I enjoy, is the couple moments where those risks pay off, which is Scooby turning into Einstein.
Oh, man!
Or
that Tasmanian Devil scene? Scooby was originally supposed to turn into the 2D Hanna-Barbera animated Scooby.
No shit,
That
Sherlock. That
would have been
The
amazing.
filmmakers chose... They didn't want to make you compare the CG animated Scooby with the 2D animated Scooby, much like in the first film, where they animated that entire opening title sequence that they pulled. So they made him the Tasmanian Devil instead. What a ripoff. I would have loved to have seen a 2D Scooby there. Just for a moment.
I would have at least liked, I think when Scooby became Einstein, give us Frank for that.
I would like, if I may, to take you on a strange journey.
That's such an obvious difference, though, between like feature and television and animation, because when you're doing the features, you just don't even think of the other, like,
It's not
what's
for
going
us.
on with Scoob right now, right? It's like you don't think of the people.
I feel like that was more of a zeitgeist thing at the time, though, because I felt the same way about the goddamn X-Men movies, where it was like and I said this previously, the yellow spandex joke, where it was like, oh, what, would you rather I be in yellow spandex? And Billy and I both said, yes!
Yeah.
That is what we watch when we watch X-Men. That's what we want.
Would you rather I represent the source material?
But it's like,
And that's
that
why
can't
I felt
exist in
like
movies.
I really liked when Fred was like, you know what? I'm going to put on an ascot for this. And I wish he had tied it properly. But I like the idea that moment was there. They
And
were
just
off
yeah.
by an inch.
Yes, but despite like however much I find Zack Snyder to be distasteful, what he gave us was the permission in movies to actually go to the source material and be like, it's okay to show a big screen adaptation of a source material, to be fetishistic about these details and these visuals and show, what people loved about it in the first place.
Do you guys remember in the Scooby-Doo conversation that we had where we were talking about the Damon-ritis and how the claw thing at the beginning ended up referencing the claw thing at the end? And that was something that Nick was actually trying to like plant and goad out of Billy and myself. And then he's like, yes, that's what I wanted to hear. As I'm watching this movie and they have the gang playing Frisbee when they're kids, and then it comes to the control panel at the end, which is basically a Frisbee. I'm like, where's Nick?
Playing the Frisbee thing, yeah. Yeah, that was a little too obvious to me. Oh, if only everything could be so simple as it was back then. Quick, throw me the thing!
If they should have just like played the exact same music over top of it as well.
And they all revert back to their teenage selves as they're throwing it. Oh my god.
So speaking of teenage selves, I guess we'll be reuniting for the anniversary of Scooby-Doo The Mystery Begins next.
Once again, another first for me.
Yeah, I'm game. I'm definitely game, but I don't know what the year on that is.
Is there a direct-to-video before that? Can we get a little palate cleanser? Like, please tell me, like, Monster of Mexico is before that.
I would like to visit one very good film, which is the Josie and the Pussycats film, and one very bad film, which is the Yogi Bear film. As part of my broader Hanna-Barbera scope, these are movies that I would like to visit. I just don't know how and what format to kind of use.
I mean, if this is still on the podcast and on the record, yeah. I mean, if you want to talk about the Josie and the Pussycats film, I was a huge Blink-182 fan. Pop punk was my bread and butter, and that movie came out, and I was like, yeah, these three little words will come undone.
I love that movie. I'm a huge fan of that movie. I don't think it gets the props that it deserves.
Alan Cummings in both that and Spice World as fundamentally the same character.
And that movie did have an impact on the Scooby-Doo franchise because they went PG-13 and they pushed it into a slightly more satirical, comedic, mature vein without completely losing sort of the youth appeal. But that movie failed, so they course-corrected on Scooby-Doo and changed some shit. So I feel like it's a Hanna-Barbera property, it had an effect on the Scooby-Doo movies, and it's just a good movie. So I'm down if you guys are down, or if anybody's...
All right. We'll see you for the 17th anniversary.
It doesn't have to be...
Josie and the Pussycats.
It doesn't have to be an anniversary. All right, so obviously, Billy, we all have podcasts. Where can we find you online?
We do. So for this audience, you can find me at Scooby-Doos or Scooby Don'ts with Amelia Wellman. You know how to find podcasts by now, listeners.
And Nick, where can people find you? Stitcher, iHeartRadio, YouTube,
You got
iTunes,
Googles? You got Googles, don't you,
Google
you
Play.
idiots? I dare you to Google Nick Robes.
If you look for a podcast,
I dare you to Google image search Nick Robes and see what pops up. Because you're going to get some dope-ass kimonos. Tell you that right now. No, what's with you?
Any podcasts?
Do I have What's With You, Scooby-Doo? Live, you can find me. If you head to nickroves.com, whatever my live dates are, whenever I feel like updating that.
And what do you do live, Nick?
I am a stand-up comedian as well as a host of a show called Nightcap in Portland, Maine, co-host with my best friend, Krista Rollins, and it's the most ridiculous variety show ever conceived of on the local circuit.
It's funny, chatting with you, you'd never tell you were a stand-up comedian.
You don't let anyone else speak, as well as you're completely domineering, almost like you're holding a microphone in front of a brick wall. And Mike, where might we find you?
Well, if you're not a native of a podcast named Scooby-Doo listener, you can find me on all the social medias and podcatchers and pod delivery systems. As Nick would say, where all great pods are cast. Basically, it's a Scooby-Doo podcast for all ages and intensities, and ultimately, I'm just putting together like an oral history of the franchise, talking to people who've worked on the show, worked on the books, worked on different iterations. Interviews. It's an interview show.
On the continuum, if you are interested in Scooby-Doo, I would say that listening to our podcasts, it is from Scooby-Doo to least. It would be Mike, Billy, me.
Yeah, I mean, I like the fact that we all inhabit different niches. Like Mike is looking at the people who have worked on Scooby-Doo. Amelia and I are looking at, the episodes themselves. And Nick is looking at the people who watch Scooby-Doo.
There's Billy bringing up the watching chronologically again.
Like, if you had to watch the 80s without a break,
how would your mind crumble?
Even now.
I always say, anytime that I go on Twitter and I interact with any of the Scooby-Doo podcasts, I'm like, fucking Game of Thrones podcasts don't have this much fun. There is the most, fun bunch of dorks. It's a great bunch of people. I think the Scooby-Doo podcasting community, it might be the best ever.
I'm a fan.
Scooby-Dudes, mystery. There's another mystery
Meddling
one.
Kids.
Groovy Scooby Cast.
All right, guys, I gotta hop off here. Perhaps once we are all unmasked and unleashed, we will reveal our true selves.
Have you heard the good news? There's cookies.
I'll see you guys.
This was a blast, man. I had an absolute great time. All right, have a good one, man.
We will talk to you later.
Peace.
Good night, man.
I want to go to bed.